In this video, we are discuss about NET. NET stands for Network Address Translation. Simply means NET does a work that is change local IP into public IP and public IP into local IP. For example, why we use NET? Just there is a LAN. This LAN have a switch, a router and some hosts. This router is connected with ISP, or you can see the server of Google. There is another LAN. The LAN have a router, a switch and some PCs. This router also connected with Google server or can access with Google. This LAN using 10.0.0.0/24 network. This LAN also using 10.0.0.0/24 network. This PC have 10.1 IP. This PC also have 10.1 IP. So now, if this PC wants to connect with Google, it send a request or packet to the Google. Now Google reply to that particular IP address. But at this time, two PCs, this and this, are connected with the same IP address, that is 10.1. This LAN belongs to another company and this LAN belongs to another company. So there are possibility that two PCs have same local IP, or you can say private IP, because all companies using the same private IP range. So what is the solution? The solution is, at the router we use NET. At the time when this PC wants to connect with Google or any other ISP website, then NET take place. NET change this local IP or private IP into a purchased public IP. That public IP is unique over the ISP, or you can say over the internet. This public IP can connect with Google or any server. This server can reply to this public IP because this public IP is unique over the internet. Now this public IP is changed into this local IP with the help of this NET, and that reply is going to this particular host or PC. Now the same thing is done here also. This router applies NET. If this PC sends some data to Google, then this router change this PC's local or private IP into a global or public IP. This public IP is unique over the internet. This public IP can communicate with Google. Google sends some data to this public IP. This public IP receives that data, and this router changes this public IP into its local IP with the help of NET. Via this way or this medium, any local IP having PC or any host that having the local or private IP can communicate with any global IP or any server that have a global or public IP. So we are using NET to connect the internet with the a PC that having a private IP. So as a summary, we can see NET does a work that change private IP into public IP and public IP into private IP. NET create a table for changing these public IP into private IPs. What are the content of tables we will discuss about one by one. Actually, NET having three flavors, or you can see three types of NET. The first one is static NET. The second one is dynamic NET, and the third one is PET. We will discuss these three one by one. Now the first one is static. In the static NET, we do one by one mapping. It means if a LAN having multiple PCs on one router means you are using only a single, or you purchase a single global IP, or sometimes it also refer as public IP. But this LAN have multiple private IPs. In the static NET, we are using one by one mapping. One by one mapping means we map one IP with one global IP. It means we apply NET here. This NET change this particular IP into this particular global IP. This NET does not change this or any other local IP into this global IP, because we are using one-to-one mapping. One-to-one mapping means one static IP, one private IP changed into one public IP. This private IP and public IP is fixed. For example, I am having 192.168.1.1. This IP is changed into particular public IP, and public IP change into this particular IP, and 192.168.1.2 or 3 or any other IP does not change into this public IP. This is one by one mapping used by static NET. For example, there are two PCs. The first IP is 192.168.1.1. The second IP is 192.168.1.2, and we have an IP address like X, that is public IP address. We are using static NET. It means we are using one by one mapping. It means 1.1, that is private IP, change into X public IP. It means this IP can connect with the internet. This IP does not connect to the internet. If we use or we want to connect both IPs to the internet, so we need to purchase a different public IP. For example, if you want this private IP into public IP, so we need to purchase, or we need to have a different public IP, because in a static we use one-to-one mapping. One public IP into one private IP, one private IP into one public IP. That's it. This is static NET. But if we have multiple or number of PCs, like we have 100 PCs, so we need 100 global IP or public IP addresses to connect all those PCs to the internet. This is a big problem because we need a money or a big amount to purchase number of public IPs or 100 public IPs. So this is a big problem. So we come with the second flavor of net, that is dynamic. In dynamic net, in static we are using one-to-one mapping. In dynamic also we are using one-to-one mapping. But it works like this. These are some PCs. We have only one public IP. In dynamic net, any of them any IP can change into public IP, but not simultaneously. It means if this IP wants to connect, this IP can connect with the internet. Net change this private IP into this public IP. After completing the work, net can also change this private IP into this public IP. Net also change this private IP into this public IP. It means in dynamic net, net change any private IP into public, a single public IP, but not simultaneously. It means two PCs cannot change public IP at the same time. If PC1 change or communicate with the internet by using net, at that time no other PC can communicate with the internet. It means only one PC can connect with the internet if you are using one public IP. If you are using two public IPs, then two PCs can change its private IP into public IP simultaneously, because we are using multiple, or we are using two public IPs. There is a problem also. The problem in dynamic net is if we want to connect simultaneously multiple PCs to the internet, or we want to use net simultaneously for multiple PCs or multiple hosts, then we need multiple public addresses. So for overcome this problem, we come with PAT. PAT stands for Port Address Translation. In this case, we can connect internet simultaneously with multiple hosts and with only one public IP, because the mapping of PAT is like this. This is the private IP, this is the public IP. We have only public IP 1, that is X. The private IP, for example, I am using 192.168.1.1, is changed into X 192. This is the scenario for net, or you can say static net. But when we are come with dynamic net, it is changed regularly. For example, 1.1 can communicate with X or can change into X. After the 1, 2 can change, 3 can change, 4 can change into X. This is the scenario of dynamic. But in PAT, 1.1 with a port number, for example, I am using 1024 port number, can change X 192.168.1.6 with a different port number, can change into X 192.168.1.10 with a different port number, can change into X. it means multiple IP address or multiple private IP address can change into public address by using port numbers. Public address or router use these port numbers for distinguish between all routers or you can say all private IPs. So now come with the configuration part of NAT, static, dynamic and PAT. First I am using the router. For using the NAT, go to your CLI mode of the router or take an console access of the router. Just go to your enable mode, then configuration mode, then just type, for I am discussing first static NAT. I am applying static NAT first. IP NAT IPNet inside type source. Now you need to type the list and the static. I am using static NAT, so I am using static and the IP address 192.168.1.1. This is our private IP. I am using one by one mapping, so I am using only one IP address here. Now you need to type the global IP address or your public IP address here, like I'm using, and just press enter. Now the static NAT is applied. Static NAT applied, it means static, the source or the private IP is this private IP is changed into this public IP. If you want to check, just type show IP NAT translation. This is inside global IP address and this is local IP address. Now just put no. Now I'm applying the dynamic IP address. Before applying the dynamic address, we need to know about a thing. The thing is like that we need to, for example, I am using a PC here. This PC is connected with this and I am using internet here. For example, this is our internet, or you can say any cloud or any server. Now FA0/0 is our inside network and FA0/1 is outside network. Inside network means this network having the private IP and this interface having the global IP. So we need put commands for knowing what is the inside interface and what is the outside interface for this particular static NAT. So go to your interface FA0/0. This is my inside interface. So I am typing IP NAT inside. Just press enter. So now router treat this interface as the inside. It means this interface having a private IP that is used in the NAT, static NAT. Now go to your interface FA0/1. Just type IP NAT out or outside. Press enter. Now this interface is treated like outside interface. this interface is treating like inside interface. After knowing the inside and outside interface, router use this command or static net, that is used for static. This is our inside IP address and this is our public IP address. This is all about the static net. Now if you are using the dynamic net, you need these commands, you need this command also, you just need to change in these commands. So I am changing these commands only, because dynamic net also use these commands, these two commands, because in dynamic net we give these commands for understanding which is our inside interface and which is our outside interface. If you are using dynamic internet, just give these commands, then this command, then the third command, and the command is before giving the command I am know this command, that is static nets command. I'm deleting the static nets command. Now I'm giving the dynamic nets command. The command for dynamic net is ipnet pool. We need to create a pool of IP addresses. First go to your configuration mode, IP net pool. Now give the name of pool, like I'm giving the name as Cisco. And the pool, this pool have multiple IP addresses. For example, 192.168.1.1 to 192.168.1.254. This is our pool. It means these IPs that are start from .1 to .54, these IPs can change into global IPs. The private IP that not belongs to this range, that particular IP that not belongs to this range, that not change into global IP through the dynamic net. So we are using these range because we need to change these IPs only to public IPs. So I am creating the pool by this command. You need to type here subnet mask. I'm using 255.255.255.0. Just wait a minute. This is my IP range 1.254. We need to put the subnet mask also .0. Net mask. Now put the net mask, that is 255.255.255.0. Press enter. We create the pool with this subnet mask. Now after creating the pool, just create IP net, static net, IP net inside source list. You need to create a list first. So creating a list, type access list 1 permit any. Now type IP net inside source list 1 or you can type, or you can create access list, or you can modify your access list as you want. This access list is work for the source or the private IP range for our dynamic net. List 1 and pool, the name of the pool that I already created with Cisco. Press enter. These are the commands for dynamic net. Now for PAT, you just need to add IPNet inside this. IPNet inside source list 1 pool Cisco. You just need to type here overload. If you are using overload here, then router attach a port number with the private IP. That is work for PAT. If you are using PAT, just type overload after the dynamic nets command. Just type overload after this command. This command is for dynamic net, and if you are putting overload here, then this command becomes PAT's command, or you can see port address translations command. Now I am applying the port address translation, or you can say PAT. For checking purpose, the command is show IP net translation or statics. These are two commands for checking the net, the working of net, and you are debugging the packets of net. For debugging the packet, just type debug IP net. Press enter. IP net debugging is on. For undebug, just type unall, or you can type uall. This is all about net, static net, dynamic net, and PAT.